We got everything going.
Check, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose?
Just getting started. Hello, everybody. Hello, the few of you. What's up? What's up, Ian and Marcus Dayton? Good to see you here. Just getting this started. I'm going to do a little piece, a little reporting on the Heritage Foundation. This subject can always get a little touchy, so I hope there's no reason why TikTok should restrict this live, because there's nothing conspiratorial about this. It's just going to be facts that we're going to be talking about in this live regarding what's happening inside the Heritage Foundation. Is it collapsing? And what I could ask everyone to do as they're joining, thanks for joining me today to talk about this. Probably going to do about a half-hour live here about the Heritage Foundation and the internal two factions, and probably give everyone some insight on why these two factions have even working together in the first place, because it is actually quite fascinating. So as TikTok is just getting this live spread out to more and more people, I would ask you to please share this live. If you know anyone that's interested in what might be happening at the Heritage Foundation, please repost this live. And more importantly, if you can just take a second, and I did a video on this today, I posted it a few hours ago. If you can repost that video, that would be really appreciative, because obviously videos get much more exposure than lives do. So I think it's important for anyone that cares about our democracy and cares about special interests that are taking over or trying to take over, American democracy. This is a really important topic regarding the Heritage Foundation. And if anyone has any additional insights they want to share or just has questions, please request up and join the live, and let's have a little discussion. I am not the preeminent expert on this topic by any means, but I have done my research. It's very clear and obvious what's happening inside the Heritage Foundation. And what does it mean to Project 2025, which most people, you know what that is, right? And on YouTube over here. So you know what Project 2025 is, but you probably don't know what Project Esther is. I have to worry about my fingers, where I'm pointing to. So it's really important to understand this, because there's a coalition between the pro-Is faction inside the Heritage Foundation and the white nationalists, or the WC nationalists, let's just call them that. So as this is getting more exposed to more and more people, again, request up if you have any questions. I'm going to start in about 30 seconds and give my monologue, and so everybody understands what's happening at the Heritage Foundation. And is the Heritage Foundation finally getting some karma? The answer to that is yes. Will it last? The answer to that is I don't know. They are obviously a well-funded group, but they're losing a lot of their funding because of what's happening between the pro-Esther group and the WC Nationalists in Project 2025. So this is finally getting out to more and more people. So thanks for tuning in. Please repost this live if you know anyone that's interested in learning about the Heritage Foundation. And more importantly, please repost the video that I did earlier today on this topic. The more reposts to get, the more people understand. Thanks for the fan club. Really appreciate it. Remember to like and follow and get more and more people to understand what I stand for, and that's obviously protecting democracy, and more important, eliminating corruption from our government, making sure we get rid of all the big money out of government at some point. The next live I'm going to have, which is going to be today as well, after this one, is going to be, do you support a full reset of American politics? Would you like to reset our political system? That does not mean changing the Constitution. It does not mean changing anything related to the Constitution or the rule of law. What it basically means is, do you want to reset the people in government and the parties in government and the corruption that's within government and the career politicians that are in government. That's what that means. If you want to reset our political system, I am certain it can happen, but it's going to take 50 million people to do it. And that sounds like, well, it's crazy. That's so many people. It will never happen. That's not that many people. 50 million people clearly in the United States would love to reset the political system and remove all the greed and the corruption by corporate special interests and special interests like think tanks and NGOs and all the foreign influences, etc. Everyone wants to do that. We all know that. So when I say there's 50 million people, thanks for the claps. Thanks, Tabitha, for joining. Thanks for Red Iron Ranch. It's good to see you guys here. And we're going to get started in just a second on this. But if you really want a full reset of the American political system, it can be done. It's just unlikely that it can be done from within the two parties right now, the way they are operating and the level of influence that both parties have, some worse than others, and especially on the MAGA side, what's happening here with the Heritage Foundation. So if you'd like to do that, that's what my mission is, to try and eliminate corruption through a 28th and 29th Amendment. But so watch my other videos on those topics. That's not what today's topic is about. Today is about the Heritage Foundation. So let's get started and talk about the Heritage Foundation. Thanks for all the likes, everybody. Now let's talk about this. All right. So there are two major factions within the Heritage Foundation. One has always been this conservative think tank that supports, American Christian values, sort of conservative values, the old school conservative values that you can respect. There's always been that part within the Heritage Foundation. And they've been promoting, obviously, conservative views for decades. However, over the past few years, it's been getting more extreme and more radical. And that's with two groups. You have the WC Nationalists, so the old conservative groups have been getting infiltrated or pushed out by the WC Nationalists, right? The supremacists. And that's what Project 2025 is. And there's a bunch of names under there. These are people that support Project 2025. Many people know about Project 2025. And what they're trying to do is essentially turn American democracy into a religious state. They want to tell you how to think and how to behave. Now, recently, the Heritage Foundation, not too recently, it's for years now, they've also aligned themselves with the pro-is Zionists, all right? And that was Project Easter. I don't know if I even pronounced that right. I don't know how to pronounce it properly, so excuse me. Pronunciation is not always my strong suit. But pro-Israel Zionists and the Project Esther group. Now, most people don't know what the Esther group is. They are a group of obviously pro-Israelis that want to ensure or eradicate or reduce anti-Semitism. That's understandable. They are trying to reduce anti-Semitism and working in conjunction with the old school conservatives and also the WC Nationalists and pro-is. So you might say, well, that's strange. Why would the WC Nationalists or the other conservatives align themselves with that group, with the pro-is groups? And it's actually quite simple. It's Judeo-Christian ideology. I am no religious expert, but in essence, I'm going to keep it simple. Obviously, Jesus was born in Jerusalem. It's the Holy Land for both the Christians or the white Christians. Now, remember, when I say white Christian nationalists, they're not, they're perverting Christianity. So don't make it seem like I'm attacking Christianity. I am absolutely not. I'm advocating against the WC nationalists and their perverted version of Christianity. So Jesus, obviously, from Jerusalem, born in Jerusalem, and then you also have Israel, which is obviously in control of Israel. And this is the Christian-Judeo relationship. Now, you might think that's a little strange, but really, in simple terms, what it really is is anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic, anti-Palestinian. That's where this relationship comes together. These groups are not so much working hand in hand for the exact same objective. The pro-Zionists want to protect the J state, and the WC nationalists want to make sure that Jerusalem stays under the control of Israel. That's where the connection is. And it allows the WC nationalists to take the high road morally and say that we are anti-Semitic. So it's aligning themselves, taking the moral high ground, saying we're anti-Semitic. And the pro-Is people, of course, are all on board with that. So this anti-Semitic moral high ground is where this relationship comes together. Don't think that they're completely aligned, because they're not. And that's the next part of the story. So Project Easter, so just think about it, and again, really simple terms. Basically what these groups are anti-Palestinian, anti-Muslim, anti-Islam, anti-Middle East outside of Jerusalem, outside of Israel. That's what this is. This is an organization of, I don't want to use the H word, this is an organization against those different groups. And it's not necessarily, that's why their coalition works or worked. So now let's talk about what really happened here. Now, recently, there's been a big infighting between these two groups. And that's because the WC Nationalists, or the old Christians, you have Kevin Roberts as the president of the Heritage Foundation, and sort of the old conservative or the white WC Nationalist. Think of it that way. He even looks like one. So he is the president of the Heritage Foundation. Tucker Carlson recently had Nick Fuentes, an anti-Semitic influencer, on the Tucker Carlson show. And that made the pro-Is people go nuts because they amplified, meaning Tucker Carlson amplified Nick Fuentes, an anti-Semitic POS, right? Just a complete POS. And the people on the pro-Is side, on Project Esther, they went crazy because they wanted an apology. They couldn't believe that Tucker Carlson, who's part of this group, would allow, or to platform, they call it platforming, to platform Nick Fuentes and give him even more to amplify his anti-Semitic messages. So not only did the WC Nationalists, or Kevin Roberts from the Heritage Foundation, not apologize, he doubled down on it and said, we support Tucker Carlson and we fully support, I forget the exact quote, paraphrasing, but we support Tucker Carlson. And this group right here wanted nothing to do with it. They finally saw what this group stands for. It's no longer conservative values, and it's all about W supremacy. That's what this group is about now. And they would not admonish this group, the white supremacists, because they're essentially what's taken over the Heritage Foundation, what used to be a conservative think tank. That's not what it is anymore. And then the entire team from Project Esther and board members and the donors. You can guess who those donors are. They all walked away and cut ties with the Heritage Foundation. So that is what happened in this organization. So the blue bubble essentially left. What's up, Orwell? Good to see you. They essentially left the Heritage Foundation and are no longer supporting the Heritage Foundation. Now, will this last? That's a good question. Who knows? But right now, there's a serious implosion that happened at the Heritage Foundation, and there's serious turmoil. Can it be repaired? Probably not, but you never know, because they've showed their hands. They are no longer a conservative think tank, and they are all about the extremists, supporting the extremists, and these people want nothing to do with it. So what used to be an alliance seems to be a breaking up. Will it continue to break up and stay broken up? Who knows? We can only hope so. We can only hope that karma is finally hitting home. So I don't care what you think about this particular group. I do care what you care about this group, because these are just POSs, right? These are people that want to turn our democracy into a theocracy and make us into a religious state. This is the Russ Votes of the world, Stephen Miller's, Hegseth's, etc. Complete POSs, and we need to make sure they don't succeed. So hopefully, the Cambridge Institute is another think tank like the Heritage Foundation, also related to this, but to keep it simple, that's what's happening with these two groups. So that's what's going on between these two factions. We can only hope that this continues to affect not only Project Easter, but Project 2025. Now, will it affect Project 2025? No one knows. You got Russ Vogt still in government as the director of the OMB. They are still trying to tear down as many of the rule of law and the Constitution as much as possible. Will they continue to move forward? How much will this turmoil inside the Heritage Foundation affect these groups? Clearly, there's a lot of unhappy people on both sides of these groups. Okay, so if anyone wants to ask any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Please join the live, requests up and join the live. Happy to have you here, and or ask any questions in the comments. So I'll take questions now in the comments, or just read out any interesting comments that related to this that I may have not have read about yet or haven't studied what's happening internally, because I'm not really sure what's going to happen down the line. I don't know if anyone can really predict that. But again, make sure you understand, I don't think this is very complicated. So this is what's happening inside the Heritage Foundation, and I can only hope that karma continues to bite their ass, because these are just disgusting. Not these, particularly this group right here, have just some very sinister things in mind or plans in mind. And all you have to do is read Project 2025. They are leveraging Trump as a stooge, as a useful idiot, as an asset, as a vehicle, as someone once told me, as their Caesarean figure to move forward their agenda. This is not Trump's agenda. Trump doesn't give a shit, right? Trump is just clueless. He just cares that you're kissing up to him, and he really doesn't care. He's just influenced by transactional relationships, and that's what both of these groups just essentially make transactional relationships with Trump in order to leverage him for their own interest. That's right. Orwell says Trump has no values one way or the other. That's right. You know, I will say something new, that I've always said that Trump has no values and no integrity. Well, he does value money. We know that. And he does value his narcissism and being kissed up to. But there's actually one other thing that he does have a value of, and it's actually strange. I've always known it, but it made very clear with his press conference with Mamdani last week, is that Mamdani being from New York and Trump being from New York and Trump having enormous history of New York, Trump actually values New York. He actually cares about something. He actually cares about New York. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means the New York people. I don't think so. I just think the city, like the physical city, because he has so many memories of New York when he wasn't a pariah in New York, when he's actually, in some circles, liked in New York. So there's one other thing other than money that he values, and that's actually New York. And you saw that with Mamdani's press conference last week. And I think that's why he was so nice in that meeting, Orwell. I think you're right. That's why he was so nice in that meeting, because obviously he's dealing with, whenever Trump meets someone that has more charisma than him, more presence than him, and is really popular or powerful and very, very rich, so either popular or very, very rich, Trump folds like a house of cards. He's in awe. He's in awe when he meets face-to-face with Obama. He's in awe when he meets face-to-face with Gavin Newsom. And he was in awe meeting face-to-face with Mamdani. And he's been in awe of meeting people like Jeff Bezos and many others. So when he meets real charisma or real power in terms of wealth, he actually just folds like a house of cards, and he's just a kiss ass. And that proved itself. However, so many people said after the Mamdani press conference last week, well, what's going to happen in the next few weeks? It's going to totally change. In this instance, I see a world where it doesn't, and that's right, Gizmo as well, and he's in awe of Putin, because Putin, when you grow up in the 70s and 80s and the Soviet Union is powerful, you think they're a powerful nation, even though Russia is not a powerful nation. And he's also in awe of Putin, because in Trump's mind, he still believes Russia to be powerful, and he believes Putin to be powerful, but he's not. But he still kisses his ass because he's just a fanboy, as user 153 said. So that's what Trump values. Obviously, money and power and New York. So if people think that he's going to turn on Mamdani, he probably will at some point, depends what happens, but he may not. He very well may not in this case, because that meeting went so well for both of them. And it was actually a great meeting. I wish politics could be like that all the time. It's the way it should be, where people can discuss things and not have to devolve into some sort of ridiculous fight. So that was actually a very small bright spot. And I think it potentially could last because of his affinity, Trump's affinity for New York. And Trump actually does want New York to succeed. Now, the question becomes, so that's why I think he's going to support Mamdani continuing going forward. However, it depends on how much Trump gets influenced. Because around him, surrounding Trump, there's this group. There's Russ Vought, Stephen Miller, and other, the WC Nationalists. They don't care about Mamdani. They don't want to see a democratic socialist succeed. He's also surrounded by some of these people on the pro-is side of things. He's also surrounded by the dark MAGA mafia, which is the Silicon Valley billionaires. He has a couple of them in his administration. He also surrounded by the tariff czars within, and he's also surrounded by some pro-Russian influences. So all those influences can change how Trump feels at any given moment, depends on who he met with last. So when you think about, he can go meet with Putin tomorrow, and he will say how great the meeting was and how much he's going to support Russia, and Ukraine better come to a peace deal. But the very next day, he can go meet Zelensky, and he will then be persuaded for Zelensky's power and charisma, because Zelensky is also funny. He also has charisma, and he can also be persuaded. So all you need to know about Trump is whoever he met with last, that's where he's going to change his tune, right? He's from minute to minute, his perspective can change. So when it comes to Mamdani in New York, will it change? I think this one might have staying power. Again, it depends on how many of these influences, the pro-Russian influences, the WC Nationalists, the pro-is groups, the tariff group, and the dark MAGA mafia, and those influences. They have so much power because they're around Trump every single day. So it depends on who gets his ear. So if enough people get his ear and they want to use Mamdani as a way to attack Mamdani, which they very well may going into the midterms next year, because they might attack democratic socialism. So we're going to see if Trump actually has any values whatsoever, even related to New York. Will he be able to stand tall and not be influenced by those other forces and continue to support Mamdani and New York? So it's very interesting. We'll see how that dynamic plays out and go from there. But that's a great point. I probably missed a bunch of comments, and I'm glad to have you here, Mr. Global, in case I do, because I'm just really bad at multitasking. Trying to rant and read the comments is just not my strong suit.
Well, I'm going to try to facilitate. So.
Thank you. And I know Tabitha, I don't know if I made Tabitha just for Tabitha. I know you're watching, so in case I may give you moderation access, because I know Josh was on vacation or he's away for a month. So if you're bored, you're welcome to also join in. Anyway, so I'll stop there for a minute. Mr. Global, is there anything that stood out to you that I was talking about?
So to be honest, I was listening for the most part, but I was having a weird connection issue, and I flipped over to the iPad once I figured it out, and I hopped in. So I heard most of what you said. Nothing that I heard was out of sorts. So I didn't really have anything to add at this time.
Okay, cool. All right. I don't know if you saw any comments that flowed by that I should. It's hard to read the chat. It is really hard to read the chat. See, Tabas, I saw yours, so that's rare, but that's only because I wasn't ranting.
I did have a question. Some of these comments, there's a no viz, like you can't see it. And I'm wondering what that's about. Like Gizmo, Jackie.
You can't see their comments?
Well, it has a weird icon next to the comment, like an eye with a line through it, and I'm wondering if they're what those are about.
Tabitha might know. I think I did see one early on, but I haven't seen one in a while.
Yeah, Gizmo, River Rock, unless maybe they've been muted for some reason, or you've maybe moderated some of their comments. But anyways,
You click to see it. You can change it as a mod. So I think they're being filtered. Okay, that's what they're saying. They're being muted or filtered by the AI because they're saying something that's probably not appropriate.
well, interestingly enough, oh, okay, never mind that one. Okay, yeah, all right. Maybe that is a good thing. Never mind.
All right. Is it a bot or is it a real person?
Well, it appears to be a real person, but I mean,
Oh, Gizmo's saying I haven't said anything wild, and Gizmo's the one that's getting blocked, it seems like.
yeah, it's land. It can't be owned in perpetuity. River Rock or River Croc. Anyways, I just thought that was odd. I'd seen it the other night for a couple times, and then I saw it again, so I didn't know what was going on.
Hey, can I come up in a second? Tabitha, absolutely. Always welcome to come up. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think everybody, even people who just watch live, sometimes don't understand all the slight nuances. So come up whenever you want. There you are.
Can you hear me?
Tabitha, are you bored these days? What are you doing with your life?
Nothing. No, TikTok blocks some people, and it seems to do it to more like couple people all the time, and you just have to like flip it so other people can read it. Usually it's nothing bad, like Mr. Global was saying. I'm not sure why it does that, but that's what I was just sitting here fixing it.
Has it been something that, well, Mr. Global just
where'd
did.
Mr. Global?
I think he's probably technology problems. So
yeah, so there's no rhyme or reason.
Oh, you were able to change it because you are a mod?
Yeah, if you're a mod, you can switch it so people can read them.
Okay.
That's what I was doing. You just approve them as a mod.
Okay, cool.
The bigger you get, the more that happens probably.
And
so.
once you approve them once, then they are approved for...
No, you have to approve whichever ones they block. So it'll just randomly block anyone's comments for no reason. I don't know why TikTok does that.
AI, right? AI getting better of their moderation tools.
Right. I'll drop. I just figured it was easier than trying to type it.
So Josh is not back until January?
As far as I understand, yes.
Okay. All right.
I'm just winging it. I'm just here for the ride.
All right. Good deal. Good deal. All right. Thanks for the clarification. Okay. All right. Since I'm going to go through this one more time, the Heritage Foundation. So there's people that have been joining. They've been joining on, and I'm going to explain it one more time. Mr. Globally coming back up, and his real name is Mr. Propaganda. How weird, never been blocked that I know of. Okay. So by the way, if anyone has any questions about the Heritage Foundation and what's happening, please ask them in the comments, and I think Mr. Global will be watching for those. Have you ever tried to pin a comment yet, Mr. Global, to see if it stays?
Yeah, I have.
I just didn't see it. Pin. Oh, I don't
know. No, interestingly enough, I can only do that when I'm not in the live. So if my bubble is in your screen, I am unable to pin comments.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Gerardo, I'm going to explain it one more time. It's not a long story at all. So for those of you that are just joining, the Heritage Foundation, is it collapsing? That might be a little bit dramatic, but that's the point of using a prompt, right? To try and make sure people are paying attention. Is the Heritage Foundation collapsing? What's happening to the two internal factions? So let's go through it one more time. You have the WC nationalists in conjunction with, let's talk about first what the Heritage Foundation always has been for the past 30, 40 years. I'm not sure when they were formed, but they've been around for decades. The Heritage Foundation is a think tank. It's known as a conservative think tank. Think of regular Republican, conservative Christian values, family values, things of that nature, the normal conservatives, Republican values that you used to think about in the 80s and the 90s and maybe even the early 2000s. So that's what the Heritage Foundation generally always has been. However, in recent years, it's been getting more extreme, and I wouldn't call it a conservative think tank whatsoever because they do not believe in the rule of law, and they are the architects behind Project 2025, which is a very extreme view of democracy. They want to turn us into a religious state, meaning a theocracy, and they want to tell us how to think and what to believe. That's what they want to do as a religious state. And that means, and that can't exist under the current constitution because we're a secular country that doesn't put one religion over the other. We have religious freedom. They don't want that. So they've been getting more extreme for quite some time with Project 2025. And now they're a very extreme part of that group is WC nationalists, W supremacists that are inside of this group. Also, they've been aligning themselves with this group, the pro-Israelists. And they're inside of the Heritage Foundation. There's a project. It's not just Project 2025. There's a project called Project Esther. And this project is meant to combat anti-Semitism. At least that's what they state on their page. So a lot of people might wonder, why would the pro-Israel faction be aligned with the old school conservatives and, more importantly, the more now WC extremist nationalists? Most people would say these two have a conflict of interest. And in many ways, they do. But they've been working together to promote anti-Semitism. And the reason this group is aligned with that group is because they want to take the moral high ground. They want to be able to claim that they are anti-Semitic and they're taking the moral higher ground. And that's where this relationship comes into play. Now, there's also a Judeo-Christian connection here with Jesus being born in Jerusalem, and obviously, Jesus was the Lord of the Christians, right? The Son of God, the Son of the Lord on the Christianity. You can tell that I'm not a religious expert. I don't ever claim to be, so sometimes I misuse the words. But anyway, in terms of Christianity, you have Jesus and Jerusalem, and of course, they want Israel to continue to control Jerusalem. So that's where there's a Judeo-Christian connection here. Now, a more important way of saying this, or a more simple way of saying this, is not only are they trying to take the moral high ground and there's a relationship between Judaism and Christianity because of Jesus, that's where the connection stays in. But what it really means, in simple terms, is they are anti-Palestinian, they're anti-Islamic, they're anti-Muslim. Both of these groups have that same commonality. So it's not really what they stand for is why they're coalition together. It's what they stand against. So the WC nationalists will take the higher, moral high ground with the from not being anti-Semitic, but what they will use their combined power and their combined wealth is to ensure that, number one, the J state always is protected, and Israel is always protected. And they will use that combination of their combined power to make sure they can control the rest of the Middle East. Is that pretty clear, Mr. Global? Is that simple?
Yeah, I think that's a large part of it. Yeah.
Okay. So now you have to wonder, of course, what's happening now? Why is there a breakup? Why is there internal collapsing or internal turmoil? And this one's really simple. So the WC Nationalist Group, or Tucker Carlson, which is part of this group, allowed Nick Fuentes to go on his show 2 weeks ago, and they call it platforming, right? So he brought him onto his show, and Nick Fuentes, if you're not familiar, is a social media influencer who is highly anti-Semitic and just a spewer of hate. He is just a total POS. So he went on Tucker Carlson's show. This group right here, the pro-Israel Zionists, they went crazy because they did not think that Tucker Carlson should platform Nick Fuentes and his anti-Semitic views. So they asked for an apology, and they had an internal strife. Now, instead of apologizing, the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, doubled down and protected Tucker Carlson and said, we support Tucker Carlson, which was basically code that we're supporting Tucker Carlson and having him allow white supremacists come onto his show and anti-Semitic pieces of shit. So this group right here, Project Esther, the entire team ended up resigning, including some board members and including their donors, walked away from the Heritage Foundation. So there seems to have been a clear split for the pro-Israel group and Project Esther moving away from the Heritage Foundation because they would not condemn the Nick Fuentes being given a platform. And that's all you need to know, because what used to be a conservative think tank is no longer a conservative think tank. With Project 2025, it's now an extreme white Christian nationalist think tank that supports anti-Semitic behavior and white nationalism. And this group now wants nothing to do with it. So these two groups have now apparently split apart. The question becomes, will it stay split apart? What will happen? That's to be determined in the future. Does it affect Project 2025 in the future? That's hard to say. Probably not. Maybe. Depends on how much of their funding came from this group, right? Because there's some very powerful and very wealthy funding groups. And that was also an alignment between these two groups, that by aligning this group with that group, they allowed even to raise even more money. So the coffers were wide open in order to supporting both of their missions, which was both Project Esther and Project 2025. So they're clearly going to lose some influence in terms of their ability to fundraise. I don't think it's going to be, it's hard to say. It's hard to say how much it's going to change. So that's the story between these two groups. I would ask everybody to please repost my last video that I posted just today. It was about 4 or 5 hours ago. It was on this topic so that more people understand. So please repost it. This needs to be known across the country by millions of people, and there needs to be more people talking about it, because I find it actually to be pretty interesting. Because I've had a lot of people ask Mr. Global, you've seen it in the comments over the past weeks, people saying, why are these two groups aligned with each other? And I never fully understood it either.
I think it's just, it feels to me that it's just a relationship built on control of the population, or just control in general, whether it be the Middle East or over people in general.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what each group wants, right? Israel wants control over their neighborhood, and we, the white Christians, want control over most of America if they can have it. No doubt about it. I think there is obviously a domination or control aspect to it. A huge, not just a little, it's massive.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Orwell, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Good. Welcome back to the show. Good to have you again.
Thank you. I'm glad I caught you. I don't know how much value this will be to anyone, but I think it's something worth talking about. So personally, myself, I think you know this about me. I'm a bit of a leftist, right? I'm not a Democrat. I'm a leftist, but I vote with the Democratic Party most of the time, actually, I always have. Anyway,
I know that, Orwell, but for the rest of the audience here, when you say, even though you vote with the Democrats and you're a leftist, how far left do you talk? Because I always like people tell you who they are, and I appreciate that when they do that.
Yeah, for sure. So I am probably what a uninformed, politically uninformed person, especially on the right, might call a commie. But in reality, I'm much closer to being a socialist. I believe capitalism can only really work for the people if it is very, very closely watched and in conjunction with social programs. And,
Right.
I think we've already seen that's what we're doing, but I just think the ratios are a little off
So in
in my
simple
mind.
terms, if you support universal health care, then you're a commie.
I mean, that's what people say. And let me give you a perfect example of that. So I went to visit my parents recently. They're both in their 70s, lifelong Democrats, and also lifelong Christians. I am neither. I'm not a Christian. I'm not religious. Um, and so I end up having lots of conversations with my mom about, politics and religion. Um, and something very interesting happened the other day where um, uh, uh, Mom Donnie came on the TV, and I was asking her what she thought about him, and she said, "Well, I don't know. I think he might be okay, but as long as he's not too far left." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, I've heard he might be a communist."
Yeah.
And let me preface all of this by saying my mother is not a dumb woman. She's very smart, but when it comes to religion and things like that, she definitely has Christian blinders on. Now, she is not hateful. She's what I call a good Christian, where she goes more by the teachings of Jesus and believes in helping other people and things like that. Not fire and brimstone. And yet, I guess this is the whole point I'm going to make is as as loving of a person as she is, and as inclined as she is to help people who are less fortunate, she has blinders on when it comes to a candidate who is not Christian.
Hmm.
And so, I've always tended to look at the Heritage Foundation through the lens of, oh my God, like this is an existential threat, and I kind of think it is, but I just came to realize that there's a more subtle underpinning to all of this, which is there's millions and millions of people who truly believe that, because of their faith, they truly believe that a Muslim should not. They're afraid that Muslims are going to take over and the white people are going to go away. And they're not all bad people. They're just religious, and that's how they think. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. You can see it on both sides. You can see like, the slippery slope thing is like, it's not even a slope. It's like, as soon as you move just a half step over it, you're at the bottom of the hill. That's how people feel about, you can talk about gun control. You talk about every issue. They think if you give an inch, they'll take a mile, but really in their minds, it's all, if they give an inch, that's the whole mile. It's like people just have this warped thinking, and both on the right and the left, just like her on the left. She's a good Christian, but she's now worried about, because she hears all the fear mongering about Mamdani being a social capitalist, right? And
Right.
he think all of a sudden that's going to lead to socialism. Oh my goodness, you're so far away from socialism. It's an incredible, but people don't
Well,
understand
that's
how broad the spectrum is.
that's partially probably due to the media's way of making people freak out about things. I
Yeah.
mean, people aren't free thinkers. They're not looking at things through their lens. They're looking at it through Fox News's lens or CNN's lens
Well, you
or
just have to ask the
whatever.
question: is if you asked most people on the street, where is fascism and where is communism in terms of left or right, I guess most people would have no idea which is where.
Right.
I mean,
I
Well,
think well, you're, and
maybe.
you're, you're,
I
you're
guess it
both.
depends on how old they are, right?
Well, people tend to come up with the most convoluted. Like I've been in right wing lives before where I got called a Leninist, Marxist, socialist, communist, and I was like, those are all different things, dude. Like, what are you talking? They don't know what these things
no, they're
mean.
just name calling. That's all they're doing.
It's just things they hear. It's like, and then they associate that with something bad. But what I found interesting was when I drilled down with my mom about, because she basically said, well, I wouldn't vote for him. And I was like, well, let's unpack that. Like, why wouldn't you vote for him? And she said, well, I heard he might be a communist. And I said, what would make you say that? And she said, well, I just heard that. And I was like, okay, so first of all, let's use our You're a smart woman. Use your cognitive thinking and think this through. Who would you have heard that from? Someone on the left or maybe someone on the right? And then also, do you know what his policies are, which she did not? And so I just went through a few of the basic ones, the supermarkets in the food deserts and trying to get the slumlords to get their act together and stuff like that. And point by point, she was like, "Oh, that's great. That's amazing. I love all of that." And I was like, "See, you like this candidate, but you still wouldn't vote for him because of his religion." So it's very, this is just me, and I hope I don't ever offend anyone by saying things like this, but I feel that that is where religion becomes very dangerous because people, again, like my parents, fully understand that we have a secular government, but you can tell that they kind of, that kind of irks them a little bit. Like they'd be okay if there were Bibles in school and everybody had to say prayers in the morning and stuff like that. But so it's just a weird line, I think, for a lot of people
Yeah,
to
and
deal
that's
with their religion.
and before Marcus jumps in, that's the interesting point. What I try my best to do that, but so many, including me and everybody else, we do such a bad of explaining not relatively complex things in very simple ways. Because the better you can explain things more simply, we all know that's been proven to work. So, you can talk about universal healthcare or anything. There's just an incredible lack of ability to explain things simply, especially on the left, because they try and make things a little too complicated and they just got to really make things easy to understand. Because that's what, think about what the right does when they call someone a communist. They're just name calling, and that's simplified because there's some negative view of communism, of course. People don't know exactly what that means, but they don't need to know what it means. But it's a simple way of pigeonholing somebody into a negative matter where they would never vote for them. So in order to combat that, people on the left and in the middle just need to work on better ways to explain things simply, which is not that easy, right? That's, if you're building a new business, one of the hardest things to do is you're selling an elevator pitch is how do you tell somebody what you're doing in like 7 words or less, or like 10 seconds or less? That's not an easy thing to do. So I'm not shaming anyone for not being able to do that well. But if you notice, the best politicians, all the best politicians have been able to master that, whether it's JFK, Obama, Trump, and so forth. They are able to explain things or put things in simple terms that just say, "Oh, okay, I'm on board."
Yeah, I totally agree.
What's up,
Okay,
Marcus?
well, I'm gonna drop down. Thanks for having me up. Hey,
Cool.
Marcus.
Thanks,
What's going
Orwell.
on, man? Hey, good to see you.
You too.
But yeah, I agree with you because there's a Carnegie Mellon program that teaches you how to reach people in less than 5 minutes. It's a great program. It's an old program called Approach, Sell, and Close, and they use a K for the close part, but it's Ask is what the program's called, and that was a JFK program. Even Clinton was following that program. I can't say Obama followed it so much, but Reagan did a little bit too.
Yeah, interesting. And I'm sure you know about that. Obviously, you're a politician yourself, right? You're
Correct.
a moderate Republican, if I remember properly.
Oh yeah, I'm anti-MAGA.
Even though someone like that doesn't exist anymore, you're a figment of everybody's imagination because it really doesn't exist.
We're still here. I mean, like there's some really great Republican politicians around, like Austin Scott, over in Georgia. There's some really good ones, and there are some sellouts, like there are on both sides of that aisle. But I mean, if you're an old school Republican like myself, you're all about the Constitution, which is not what MAGA is about anymore. You're all about small government, which is not what MAGA is about anymore. You're all about fiscal spending within the government, which is not what MAGA is about anymore. And the great thing about the situation with Heritage Foundation and WC and pro-Israeli, the great thing about them splitting up with each other pretty much kind of this week is now I was saying, and you probably heard me say it on Josh's show or maybe one of the other lives that I go on, but we're split by about 4 sections within our party, which is going to help a lot in 2026 to clean up some things. But now we're split 5 ways because those 2 groups just separated from each other, and we have to lose because people don't realize a lot. If you're like Josh and I, and you're a big person with history, you just love history, and I know you do too, so I don't need to explain it to you. But when you look at the 50s, 60s, you know, early 70s, the same groups, the Christian nationalist groups, they were in the Democratic Party. And in order to get those groups kind of out of their party that were hanging around, they ended up, losing for a while. And we have to lose probably for a good 12 years. We're going to have to take a beating in Senate and Congress, and then we're going to have to take a beating and never get the presidency back for at least 3 terms. And that's the only way you're going to get. Now, what will happen is these people that want power over here, they're going to try and infiltrate over there with the Democratic Party. I mean, whoever has power, that's who they're going to go with.
Right. They're just parasites. They're just blood
Yeah,
sucking parasites. Exactly.
exactly. And like there's a lady that posted the other day that said, "I can't believe I follow a Republican right now," and his name is Mark. And I reposted it. It was pretty funny, but she said we were a little too liberal. The liberalism that we gave was to let the K people, the Heritage Foundation, Turning Point, all these groups into our group, which gave us some more power. Why we didn't hold as many voters at the time, but it's just a sick way to do it. You look at it now, and I mean, a lot of old school Republicans, and granted, we've had our times where we haven't shown up to vote, and that's fine. If old school Republicans can't vote for a Democrat now, or they can't find a good old school Republican to run for a seat, and they got a MAGA person sitting over there, then just don't show up to vote. That's it. Just don't show up to vote and let the Democrats take the ticket, because Democrats aren't bad people. And when they say, "Oh, they're T or ERS or whatever," I'm like, what the hell? All I ever see is liberal hippies, like young people who love their country, like, I mean, and if you're a politician like I am, I don't know if you've looked up my family, but right now we hold 31, political seats with my family. The Dayton family goes back where, Elias Dayton, my great grandfather 11, was the, George Washington's right-hand man, basically created what became the alphabet agencies at this point now. My great-grandfather 10 was the youngest person to sign the Constitution. That's why it means so much to my family. And, we're holding, 14 seats for Democrats, 2 seats for, that are independents, and then 13 seats that are Republicans right now. So, but we all get along because we're still normal Republicans and normal Democrats. We haven't gone so far left or so far right in this family.
I have a question for you in terms of history, because I'm not quite sure. Well, I'm pretty sure, but I just don't know if it goes back further. So the door cracking open when Republicans were too liberal in allowing hate groups basically into their organization, started getting infiltrated by hate groups. I view that as probably the Tea Party is the one that really opened the door.
Yeah, probably early 80s. Yep, definitely early 80s.
Oh, you think it was early 80s? You don't think it was late, 2005, 2007 with the Tea Party?
No. Look, it takes them 10 years to get to where they are minimum. When you look at like the K people, okay, they spent 20 years in our party before they had a guy like Trump say, "Oh, I think they're great." Like it took them 20 years to get to there. And they were getting no support in red states like mine. And look, one of the largest national K people group in the country is in DeKalb County in Alabama. They have massive, and they control judges there. So, it's insanity, but they've never been able to control a state politician.
So they were leeching their way through
level.
They were leeching their way through it. Okay, but through 2008 was when the door was kicked wide open, though, right? Using Obama's racism, right?
I would give you some of that too. I mean, each thing is a factor.
Right.
I mean, in the 70s, because Heritage Foundation was created in 1973. It joined our party very quickly. It was people that were originally in the Democratic Party, and then they joined our party very quickly. They kept very quiet, and then they really had let me say this. I'm not going to say they had a bad mission in the 70s and early 80s. They didn't. They were about being Christians and about being good, wholehearted people that would love other people and not. I'm not going to say they weren't judging, but they were trying not to judge. They were trying not to do these things. But that mission statement got lost probably right around 83, 84, when these types of groups behind your head there joined into the Heritage Foundation and they took over, much like what has happened. It's almost identical thing that's going on with the Republican Party. We Real Republicans don't have reins of the Republican Party right now. MAGA has the reins. Miller, Vaught. I mean, these guys have the reins. It's not us. And we need to come back to get the reins again. But we're going to have to take a damn beating. I'm sorry, it's the truth. And any good, solid Christian Republican who's a decent human being will tell you the truth.
Yeah.
They might be quiet a little bit, but they'll tell you the truth eventually.
Yeah, I always call myself a staunch independent, only for the fact that I never been affiliated with either the Democratic or Republican Party. And for a while, I was just trying to always toe that line of just being independent. But over the last couple of months, it's just very clear what progressive values, if you even want to call them that, which are not really liberal by any means, I've been very clear, just like you, saying blue has to win. Blue has to win for the next election and the next several elections in order for democracy to continue and to be salvaged.
For this republic and this democracy to come back to you hear people talk about Eisenhower Day. You hear a lot of people say Reagan too. But if you want those days back of old with JFK and, LBJ, if you want those days back, then we have to have good. And to me, I love you. You've seen me repost your post. I don't know how many times in different places, Facebook, ever. I reposted what you said about, how we are when we're looking at the version of what we're doing right now on both sides of that aisle. And we need the 28th and 29th Amendment. And it's the only way, like everybody asks me, what's the pathway to clear? I hear it because when you go to a Republican meeting, like your city one, or you go to the county one or the state one, I like going to the state one because there's, 1,500 people there, that show up at different times during that 24-hour window that they do that thing. So I will say this, when they ask me, what do you think the path forward is? The first step needs to be 28th and 29th Amendment. We have to take the lobbyists out of control. We have to take special interest groups, lobbyists out of control, and just run good, smart, and politicians are a dime a dozen. Like, if you don't like me, if you don't like me as a politician, if I haven't done well for you, which I feel like I have, in my constituency, but if I haven't done well for you, go find another one. We're a dime a dozen. Go find another person that wants to run who has the good, solid, moral values on whichever side of that aisle you want.
And I always say that, people say you need experience. And yes, I'm not downplaying experience. It is nice to have experience, and you always need experience in politics. But if there was less corruption in the government, or there was the 28th Amendment that made sure elections need to be publicly funded, and the 29th Amendment making sure people can't stay in office too long, my contention is that there would be, you say there's a dime a dozen now, there would be millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people that would raise their hand and say, you know what, I would love to help make our country a better place.
Exactly. Starting at the local level to the state. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I really enjoyed the live. I wanted to hop on and just say a couple things. I've always been a little concerned about, well, first off, I've been a Republican all of my life. And those people don't exist anymore. Like,
Marcus is here.
Yeah. And thank you, Marcus, for being here. But us normal Republicans aren't there anymore. They have been co-opted. It is like the 1950s movie where the body snatchers have come in and replaced these people.
I said that same thing. I've literally said that same thing.
With crazy people. And let me point you to Florida. Florida, 2 decades ago, enacted term limits. And what it did was it opened the floodgates for, everything started, all of this started in Florida. I saw the beginnings of racist, crazy Republican takeover in Florida. And when they got into the state house, the legislature and the state senate, and then because they're term limited, they were able to not care about anything other than pushing themselves forward and being able to take what they could and destroy what they could. And you don't have institutional knowledge. You don't have anybody who is able to play the long game and understand a lion of the Senate or a creature of the Senate or a creature of the House to be able to understand how things work. And, beyond I'm just a bill up on Capitol Hill, you're going to end up with more problems, and you're going to end up with crazier people.
Now let me interject, Fickles.
They'll play to the. Yeah, I'm almost done.
Yeah.
They'll play to the worst impulses of people, and we're seeing that. It's still continuing, and you get people like Ron DeSantis. That people who know better. They are people who know better, who could and should be Republicans, and yet they play to the worst instincts because that's who is left. That's all that's left.
So you are right. When term limits are taken in isolation, in a silo, they're proven not to be very effective because there's, like you said, there's no accountability. And you can, if your ability to enrich yourself and you have term limits, you're actually act faster to enrich yourself or whatever your motives are, because you can't really be held accountable. However, when you can combine that in conjunction with eliminating corruption or removing money out of politics, now you have the holy grail. So many people claim that term limits don't work because they're right. Term limits in a silo oftentimes are proven the only thing. Only on the silo. The only thing they do is they make sure there's new people coming in all the time, but that doesn't mean the system gets better just because there's new people, because they're not held accountable. It's a problem.
And term limits in Florida, one of the problems with that was you could run for a different seat. Term limits should, this is the thing, term limits should be that you can serve in a legislative office, then you could serve in an executive office. So you could be a congressperson, a senator, and then be governor, or you could be a congressperson, a senator, and then be president. But you can't just go from Senate to Congress to governor to, we let politicians bounce too much, and that was a problem. But another thing is, like he said, if we took out the special interest groups, especially down there in Florida. So I grew up in Florida. I was born in Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. I grew up in Clearwater Beach. I went to University of Florida. So
we're from
Florida,
the same area then.
Okay,
I grew up in Tampa, the Tampa area too. So yeah, I saw it happen.
You know the Dayton family. You've probably seen enough of us be elected in different positions down there. Either the Daytons or the Fordhams. You've seen enough of them over the years.
It's like the Hatfields and McCoys.
Oh yeah, the Daytons and the Fordhams. We had too many girls there for a while, so we ended up with Fordhams down in Florida. So so you look at those kinds of people, and I understand what you're saying, because those types of Christian national, can I say that? CNs. So when you look at those groups that supported Florida, that's the reason why Florida just became the battleground for no-fault divorce, which already lost in Florida, 30 years ago, but now it's back, and now it's winning. Heritage Foundation lost in Florida 30 years ago, now it's back, and it won. It won in its last election. It is in your school board system now. So
yeah,
these problems. When people want to hurt other people, the other percentage of what they think is the bad people, whether or not it's the black and brown people, or it's the LGBTQ people, or it's a person with the other religion than me, or whatever, they would suffer like a MAGA person would. Like MAGA people were doing it. Snap and everything proves that. A MAGA person will sit here and suffer as long as the person they dislike so much suffers more than them.
It's like a political Stanford experiment. I mean,
it is 100%.
Yeah, but here's, and I don't want to rain on your parade with amendments to the Constitution, but they are, as my grandmother would say, rare as hen's teeth. They don't exist. The last one happened in the early '90s, and it was from 1790. It was part of the original 11. Before
they
that, it was
if a household's all red.
1971. I mean, but they don't happen because unless you crack open like Mark Levin wants to do, and crack open the entire Constitution, you're going to end up with a horrible mess that ends up us in a position that's worse than where we are now. And the Democrats are not in any position to take 2/3 of the states. I mean, when the Democrats lost all of those 10,000 states across the seats across the states during Obama, local and state level, that's when they were open to destroying this. I've got to go. I thank you guys for letting me talk, but I hope to run into y'all again, and I wish things were better.
Thanks, Vickles.
TK, I want to add one thing to the thing. I was reading some of the comments down below. So the battleground that I'm talking about, let me say this. I hate to break it to everybody, but the battleground that you're talking about when you're talking about Turning Point, Heritage Foundation, Ladies of Liberty, I can name about 10 other groups that you probably never barely heard of that show up at school board meetings. The line in the sand, your front line right now is the school boards, and you don't realize it. It's local and state school boards. And if you need to start showing up at those local and state school board. And when somebody from Heritage Foundation gets up there trying to convince the school board that they need to vote for this thing, and they're trying to buy the votes, which is very common too. And you need to stand up and fight against it. People need to be there. That line that you need to make at, like you do at when we have open houses, and we hold open forums with politicians, like we do it in a group in my city and my county. So, but there's a big long line. We don't get to everybody. 3 hours later, we don't get to everybody. But my line at my school board is probably 2 people every single school board meeting.
Yeah.
And
People
the
are busy.
problem is the two people that are standing there is one from Heritage Foundation and one from Ladies of Liberty.
Interesting.
They don't even live where I live.
I want to just make a comment to Fickles about raining on our parade. There's no illusion here how difficult amendments have been, but people also have to remember that we get thought in this complacency that things, or a mindset that things can't change. I would just tell people, look how quickly Trump changed MAGA or created MAGA. Look how Mamdani within the past year captured the heart of New York. Look how JFK and others in the past. So, whether it's at the local level, when you have a message, if you get a message and it gains traction, things don't have to take as long as everybody thinks it does. Now, I'm not saying it makes it easy. I'm just saying if you have the right message and you have enough people that start to resonate, things become waves, and momentum is a real thing, just like with MAGA, just like Mamdani and other people. So it is hard to pass constitutional amendments, but it's just enough people. Yeah, it hasn't been done in a long time, but 1992 was an experiment.
You need leadership carrying that too.
Right.
Because look, you don't have, Obama should have been the one, after he was done being president, instead of a book tour and a speaking tour, he should have been sitting there working on the 28th and 29th and hit one of the 31st. I love a constitutional lawyer, and everybody loves listening to him anyways. He could have helped get this that's done maybe during the Biden administration at least.
Have you watched any of the 2 lives I did about JFK Jr.?
Absolutely.
Right. That's the one that just drives me nuts the most, because he would have been the one to have done it. And obviously he died in 1999. And that was a shame. That changed the course of history, as I spoke about. And people don't realize it, because most people, obviously, if you're mid-millennial or older, you may know JFK Jr., but younger than that, you don't know really much about him.
Unless you're a history buff like me, but
Right.
I wasn't alive when he was president, so but here's the
Well,
thing.
Junior, obviously Junior in 99 when he crashed his plane, right?
Yeah. And when you look at the history of, if you would have read the comments when I was commenting, I said there's literally like 100 different conspiracy groups about that, saying that it was that they wanted to block him from passing these amendments. So I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theory kind of guy. I mean, I have my thoughts on things. Like I tell people all the time, most Republicans knew that, Trump won the election when he stopped saying, I'm going to win the election and I'm going to win the popular vote. We pretty much knew he must either have something really good on the electoral college votes in the swing states, or he's bought them off. And now these things are being proven really well. When you look at how wealthy some of these people that were electoral college vote people have gotten in a very short period of time, in a 10-month window. That's just somebody telling them, much like what Barron did, somebody telling somebody, I'm going to walk out and I'm going to say, I'm going to raise China's tariffs to 100%. And what happens is, Barron hits what, $290 million in a few hours in Bitcoin. I mean, that's the game that you play, and that people don't understand. You're over here playing freaking Scrabble and arguing over words, and they're over there playing the most elite game of chess that you've ever seen.
Well,
I'm so over the group stuff, man. I can't stand it. Who's a part of what? Who's paying who? I'm so over it. I just want people to put up solutions. Put up or shut up. Like, get out of the way.
yeah,
Let's
but
get
in order
this
to
thing
solve
fixed.
in order to solve a problem, you have to recognize what the problem is and who's
There is a
responsible for it.
Well, it's clicks. I feel like I'm in high school and you've got people in the lunchroom and you can't sit at this table because that's that group, or you can't sit at that table because that's that group, and you don't belong
Well,
to
you know,
any
do you
of
know the
them.
funny thing about it? It's all the creepy people that got bullied as young people are coming back with wealth to bully everybody else.
Well, here's the thing. Imagine being a wealthy Republican, old school Republican, non-MAGA person, and imagine what I take on a daily basis. I get attacked on. I got banned from TikTok from lives a few weeks back, and I told about it on Josh's show. And I was on a live supporting a Democrat in Illinois. Okay, but then after he left, and they only had a small amount of, my assistant said they only had like 40 viewers at a time or whatever, but the minute they started attacking you, they had 350 viewers. And I was like, so I let them attack me for an hour and a half. Democrats who blame me for everything. They said the last 50 years is all my fault. I'm like, how is it my fault? Like I was 50 years ago, but whatever, and they said, well, the Republicans, it's all the Republicans' fault. It's you guys, being, and I was like, you're blaming us for 50 years. How about all the years that you held the houses and, that you held Senate, that you held, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. And it's hard. But then what happens is you make a couple of them mad because you point out something. And even though they're Democrats, they're not in the right sometimes. And then instead they follow me along and report me. And I wasn't even talking. I was taking a shower and I was on Kurt's live. I wasn't even on the live. I mean, he had pulled me up there as a guest, but I said, hey man, I need to take a shower and stuff because I got to go to the speaking engagement, but I'll be back, and I wasn't even talking. I got banned. So.
Oh, guest violation. Your guest in your live has violated our misinformation policy. Who's that? So, well, they kicked you.
That was Walker.
What do you
Or
mean?
wait, what was his name?
No, he just got kicked. Not by me. Marcus just got booted for some misinformation, what they said.
I didn't.
Wow.
He must have ticked somebody off.
Yeah, interesting. So just in case you didn't know it, that Marcus, I got an alert saying that a guest on the live has been banned. So you were just talking about it and that just happened. So oh my goodness. All right. So I don't want to talk about it just in case I don't want the live to get banned.
Hey, wouldn't that be some shit?
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm going to shut down the live. I'm going to come back later, I think, on the subject about, do Americans want to support a full reset to our political system? That does not mean changing the Constitution. So I'm going to try and come back later. Thanks everybody
Do
for
you?
What's that? Do I support a reset? No, I don't know. I'll have to think about it between now and then. Does anybody not? I think the question is, would anybody not support a full reset of our political system? Don't read into that, people thinking that, hey, we're going to rewrite the Constitution.
Communism.
Or we're going to change it to
We're going to
capitalism.
adopt China's.
None of that. Wow, interesting. Marcus, you got to keep it on two wheels, man, when you come onto these shows. Clearly you piss some people off. So whatever, I guess. All right, everybody. Well, thanks. If you please remember to repost the video I did on the Heritage Foundation today. If you could just go back to my most recent videos just from about 5 or 6 hours ago, please repost that video if you can. Remember to follow me here. And more importantly, read the plan that I put out. It's called the Citizens Plan to Bring Representation Back to the People. You can click on the link underneath my profile. It's a Linktree link. There's an article on Medium and on Substack. I'm getting more and more people are reading that plan each and every day, and that's really Inspiring because in the beginning, very few people actually read it. Now more and more people are starting to read it. More and more people are starting to comment on it. And it's slowly gaining momentum. And that's how these things happen, is that it takes time. I am a proponent of the 28th and 29th Amendment. We have 27 amendments now. There's a lot of people that think it's impossible. The Founding Fathers designed the Constitution to be amended. We just have to take it out of our minds that it can't happen. We need some leadership and the messaging to promote the 28th and 9th Amendment, and I think most people would support it. So I think I'm going to come back in about 2 hours to talk about, do you want a full reset? And we're going to go deeper into that topic and show you actually how straightforward, I use that word purposely, straightforward, because it's not simple and not easy, but it is straightforward, how it could be done. And it just means enough Americans have to take their heads out of the sand, take our heads out of the asses, take our heads out of the blue and the red pills, and realize that if we really wanted to do something different, we could. And at this point in our state of our society, it's the only choice. I think even Marcus, as a Republican, agreed with this. There's no other way to fully reset the system because neither political party is going to do it voluntarily. They have to be forced into it. And that means enough people have to come together under a very simple plan, a very simple objective. And believe it or not, most people think it's impossible. It's not. We can actually do it. So I'm going to leave us on a short Steve Jobs, Poke America. So it's not Poke America, but Steve Jobs. Just listen to Steve Jobs' quote. This is a really short closing. And hopefully I will see everybody in a couple hours.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. I think that's very important. And however you learn that, once you learn it, you'll want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up in a lot of ways. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again. When you grow up,
yeah, that was the inspiration. One of the inspirations for me starting this account. I find that to be truly inspirational. Realize we can poke things and something else will come out the other side. I don't know how everybody else feels, how inspired they are by that, but I listen to that speech quite often because I believe it sums up what we could do as Americans if we wanted to do it. So thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you in a couple hours, I hope. That's my plan, to be back in a couple hours. Please follow. Thanks for all the likes, 24,000 likes. It's really good for my live. And I appreciate the nice comments. I've read all those comments that people said they enjoyed the live. So I appreciate you being here. And all I can ask is, I have no plans to ever ask you for money. I will never ask you for your vote, but I will ask you for your support to support a 28th and 29th Amendment to eliminate corruption from our politics and to make sure being a politician cannot be a career. And that's what we're going to talk about later on this evening, as long as I can get back on live. So thanks, everybody. And I'll see everybody, I hope, in a couple hours. See you.